Good morning, everyone. We still have a few people logging in, so we'll give them a minute or two to get settled, and then we'll get underway. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's Grassroots North Shore Annual Fundraiser. My name is Chris McDonough, and I will give you some notes on housekeeping for this program and help to guide you through it. Today's event is Grassroots North Shore's 7th annual fundraiser. Our all-volunteer organization works to elect progressive candidates and educate people about progressive issues. We provide training and opportunities for our members to participate more fully in the democratic process. This virtual fundraiser program will be a mixture of live with John Nichols and statements from our leadership, volunteers, noted legislators, plus entertainment by some talented and well-known artists. Grassroots North Shore celebrates its mission to provide information, insights, and volunteer opportunities to over 3,000 people through our newsletters, events, and activities. For more information, visit www.grassrootsnorthshore.com. This fundraiser will help us continue our work. Donations can be made through the Act Blue link, which can be found in the chat, email, or through the donation button on our website. We've muted everybody by default to allow for our speakers to talk uninterrupted. Today's event is being recorded. We will share a link in a week to 10 days via email. We welcome you to revisit this content and to share it with your friends, family, and fellow grassroots activists. If you're having audio issues, please check your audio settings as indicated in this slide. If you're having technical issues you can't resolve, contact 608-852-9400. Grassroots North Shore extends its strongest thanks and appreciation to Dan Volkman, Bob Kriego, and of course myself for technical assistance. In our later email, we will provide links to groups and individuals who contributed their time and effort to make this program possible. Please be alert for short transition blackouts of 2 to 3 seconds as we move from recorded to live segments. You will still have signal, but we will use these pauses to ensure a smooth progression. Now let's meet our star speaker and program guide, John Nichols.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for this remarkable virtual experience. I want to thank Chris especially. She's done such a great job in putting together all of the technical parts of this, along with Bob and others. Shirley and many folks who you know have really contributed as well. And I'm just up here up front to tell you that the program that we're going to put together, or that we have today, is really a remarkable mix of people who've contributed tremendously over the years to Milwaukee, to the North Shore, and to Wisconsin and this country. And I want to tell you why I decided to take a few minutes to be with you today and why I think Grassroots North Shore is so important. I first encountered this group the better part of 2 decades ago as it was just getting started. And I've spoken at so many Grassroots North Shore events over the years. They've always been inspiring to me. People are very nice and they'll sometimes say, oh, you said these good things or whatever. The truth of the matter is that being with the folks in this group has given me a real sense of what is possible politically and frankly, what is being done politically in this country. So I love what Grassroots North Shore is all about. I love the activists with it. I'm only sorry that we're not together in person today, because a Grassroots North Shore event, usually in a church croft or in the basement of some building on the north side, is such a special, special event. And I want to promise you, we'll be back together again soon. But in the meantime, I want you to know that this virtual politics is already making a difference, and it will make more of a difference as we go forward. And it is the bottom line truth that the statement of former President Barack Obama is so right. And he says, the best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something. That really is the message of Grassroots North Shore. I'm honored to be with you today. I'll be back to talk to you in a little bit. But first, I want to introduce you to Eileen Stevens, who is the co-chair of Grassroots North Shore and has done so much to put all of this together. I'll see you again in just a few minutes.
Hi, this is Eileen, and I don't know why we can't see me. Oh, there, got it. All right. Welcome, and I'm so glad you all came here. And before anything else, we have to thank the incredible John Nichols for his constant support. This is like a big mutual admiration society we got going here. We're excited about this election. We have some candidates running who may break through gerrymandering. We've got Deb Andraka in the 23rd District and Emily Segrist for Assembly in the 24th. Dora Drake is running in the 11th, which touches upon parts of Glendale, and Neil Plotkin's Senate race for the 8th District, where we are hoping to unseat Alberta Darling. In addition, don't forget to look at Tom Polkowitz in the 5th and Jessica King in the 6th Congressional District. We are hoping for wonderful results. We have for you today a stellar Wisconsin lineup. It starts with Sandy Pash and then goes to Nancy Kaplan, the other co-chair of Grassroots North Shore. I need to warn you, though, about a small misspeak that will be coming from Nancy. She recorded this a month ago. She will mention a number. For the number of postcards we have sent out, multiply it by 5 if you want to know today's actual number. We also have joining us Mandela Barnes, our Lieutenant Governor, Leslie Roars, an active volunteer who will talk to volunteers about what she does. Then our very own and highly loved and respected Tammy Baldwin. Finally, we will close with some music from Paul Seabar. And so now, Sandy Pash.
Hello, friends. I'm Sandy Pash. I'm a former state representative. 12 years ago, when I first ran for office, Grassroots North Shore just rose up like a shining light, a clear voice for progressive values, a voice for education, for healthcare, for social justice, for the environment, a voice for progressive values when North Shore, at least in reputation, was considered a conservative bastion. Grassroots helped me in all 4 of my elections, and they have been there for so many other candidates. Thanks to Grassroots, which has spread and flourished, the North Shore is now proudly emerging as a strong voice for the values that are so desperately needed by our country. We need to continue that work. We need to support the work of helping candidates who stand for a better world and a more just society. We need to support voter turnout to make sure that the voices of the electorate are not suppressed. Please donate whatever you can so this vital work can continue. Way too much is at stake. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining Grassroots North Shore in today's special event. I'm Nancy Kaplan. I'm so honored to co-chair this strong organization of progressive activists. The organization has been around a lot longer than I have, or at least that I have been in Wisconsin. It began at Keith Schmidt's dining room table in 2004, and I became involved with it when I met all the wonderful people who make this organization tick when we worked on the 2012 Obama campaign. Today, we're one of the largest all-volunteer organizations in Wisconsin, perhaps the largest, and we're incredibly proud of the work we do. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what the organization has been up to lately. This year, so far, Wisconsin has held 4 elections, including the special election in the 7th Congressional District in May. And the 5th, the most important one, is just around the corner in November. So Election Day is in November, November 3rd, but everyone who has already requested an absentee ballot, and that is a huge number of people, can vote from home in just a few short weeks. Yikes. We've worked hard on all of those elections, And we would like to think that we have been part of the successful election of Justice Jill Karofsky in April. To support progressive candidates, we traditionally have hosted canvassing events, get out the vote events, as well as phone banking, using our office as a staging location for these activities. Since March, however, we've had to come up with other ways to advocate, educate, and inform. Working from our homes lately, our most impactful activities perhaps have become reaching out with postcards to women in the Milwaukee suburbs, as well as to women in Ozaukee County. And we've sent out more than 7,500 postcards since March. We've made follow-up phone calls to a large percentage of those recipients. And we're in the midst of another round of postcards now, and we'll shortly be sending out about 3,000 cards to younger voters, that is, people 18 to 40 years old, in northern parts of Milwaukee City. We've also sponsored candidate forums and debates, as well as this major event with our friend John Nichols, adapting as best we can to the Hollywood Squares version of our in-person educational and informational events. In short, this organization works hard, both in election years and off years, to engage the issues of the day, to make sure people know when elections are and how they can vote, and this year especially, to encourage everyone to vote early and to vote safely. As Mark Gennis, one of our more energetic leaders, has reminded everyone already, we can't be effective without the support of our community. So we hope you will use the ActBlue link in the caption of this video to help us continue our work. And with that, you will welcome our good friend, our next speaker, and our Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes.
Hey everybody, I'm Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, and I'm so excited to be a part of tonight's event and show my love and support for every member of the wonderful Grassroots North Shore team. As we quickly approach the most consequential election of our lifetime, it's no secret that all eyes are on Wisconsin this November. Our 10 electoral votes will quite literally determine the course of our nation and the planet, and we can't afford to lose that perspective. I'm fired up, and I'm ready to do my part wherever is needed to ensure we unite all shades of blue this November and elect someone that will bring humility, empathy, and decency back to the White House. And I know all of you share that goal. I got my start as an organizer, as you know, and through activism, so organizing and meeting with people like all of you gives me so much energy and hope. But we have to somehow keep that same kind of energy while organizing digitally. We need to be able to fire up people with our message. And that means our message can't just be focused on how bad the president is. It has to be focused on our plan. This is one of the most important things that we learned in 2018. In 2018, we proved how progressives can win in Wisconsin, winning all of our statewide offices and re-electing Tammy Baldwin to the U.S. Senate. Democrats ran against Scott Walker in 2010, 2014, and the recall election in 2012, and we lost all of those elections. But in 2018, we won because we led with our own vision. Equity and sustainability are the principles that drove my campaign. We led with our values of kindness, compassion, inclusion, and respect for all people. My campaign focused specifically on what I call the essentials of opportunity. A renewed commitment to helping working class people access health care, a clean and safe environment for our families to live in, and quality of schools for every child, no matter their zip code. So to bring back decency and common sense to the White House, we must inspire people to invest in our vision of a more equitable and just future. Our bold and inclusive vision is how we can engage people who've been left out of the conversation. It's how we can begin to rebuild trust with those who've experienced the consequences of this country's systemically violent policies. And it's how we can ensure that Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes contribute to a brighter future for our communities, not just more pain and suffering under another term for Trump. That's our path forward. It wasn't easy 2 years ago, and it's not going to be easy this year, but we know it works. This last April, we unfortunately saw what happens when voting by mail isn't accessible enough, and we can't afford for that to ever happen again, especially with what's at stake with this election. Republicans have proven over and over that they will put their political priorities over the health and safety of our people and our democracy. And they know that the higher the turnout, the lower their chances are of winning. This is why voting by mail is so important. It allows for people to safely and securely cast their ballots, and it will hopefully expand our electorate to be younger and more diverse. Now, COVID-19 has limited our ability to knock on doors and to host big rallies to get people energized. So we need activists like all of you to use this as an opportunity to get creative, to be innovative, and continue to build power in your communities using the tools of digital organizing. So thank you for all that you're doing now to encourage people to safely vote, and I truly appreciate everything you're doing to ensure that we can build a united movement and secure our 10 electoral votes for Joe Biden this November. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you all in person again soon. My heart is yearning for that sort of camaraderie, that we can get together. I miss the cookouts, I miss all the fun, but I know that in due time, we will be together once again. And when we get together again, hopefully we'll have a new president.
My name's Leslie Roars. Just wanted to give you a few words about why I do it and what I do with Grassroots North Shore. Since about 2014, I have made, 100 phone calls a day. I've made countless fundraising phone calls, and I've been with the best group of people that motivate me. They align with my progressive beliefs and my efforts for progressive legislation, progressive candidates, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Consider being a volunteer. Come join us.
To all my friends at Grassroots North Shore, I wanted to wish you well and thank you for all your hard work to make sure that Joe Biden and Democrats up and down the ticket win this November. I know that this campaign will be like nothing we've ever seen before, but as long as we have groups like Grassroots North Shore organizing, even in a virtual way, in communities around Wisconsin, we will be successful. I wanted to take a moment and offer my personal gratitude for all your work in 2018. Your work on my behalf was instrumental in my re-election, and I've always believed that grassroots campaigns, talking to voters one-on-one at the local level, are the keys to winning elections, from city council all the way up to President of the United States. And you've proven that idea to be true with your hard work and effort. In 2018, we showed what was possible when Democrats organize, listen, talk about the issues that are important to the families of Wisconsin. And I'm confident that we can replicate that effort and help elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in 2020. And I look forward to working with you to make sure that happens. Thank you.
I'm walking, 'cause we need to sing together. I'm singing to anyone who will stand and shout with me. I'm praying to remain in that number, won't back down in the storm to get there. That's why I'm walking. Hi, it's Paul Seabar, unequivocally for Joe and Kamala. Joe Biden, absolutely. Here's John Nichols.
Thanks, Paul Seabar. I'll let you all in on a secret. Paul Seabar and his band played at my wedding almost 20 years ago in a very, very different time. And I've always valued his music just as I've valued all the folks who get involved with events for Grassroots North Shore. We've had some great comments here so far, and I'll take a little bit of time now to perhaps put this election campaign and this moment into perspective. But I want to begin by telling you that nothing will happen unless you support this group, Grassroots North Shore. Grassroots North Shore isn't just one organization. It is a unique organization among many. And across this country, there are grassroots groups that are rising up to make a fundamental change, They recognize the United States is on the wrong course. The fact of the matter is that we are in a critical moment in our history. We face incredible challenges. There is simply no question of that. We have to understand that the next president of the United States will be confronted with tasks, requirements, duties that are overwhelming. But we also have to understand that we cannot, as a country, afford to retain the course that we've been on. We are in the midst of a pandemic that has been inadequately addressed by the current president of the United States. We are in the midst of a mass unemployment crisis in this country, where tens of millions of people are unemployed or underemployed, where small businesses are struggling, where working class people are really asking the fundamental questions about whether they're going to be able to support their families, and where a president and a US Senate have failed to respond to critical challenges of the moment. We also face the great call for racial justice in this country, a call to address more than 400 years of slavery, segregation, discrimination, and a failure on the part of both major political parties in this country to rise to the basic challenge of treating all Americans as equal human beings. We face a climate crisis in which we know we have only 10 to 12 years to respond, and maybe less than that if we look at all of the crises that are stirring up across this country and around the world. And we face the ongoing reality of a military-industrial complex that warps our budget priorities and throws this country off whack on so many, many major issues, because we say we have the money to fund a new weapon system, we have the money to fight some distant war, but we don't have the money to feed and educate our children, to put our people to work, to provide single-payer Medicare for all health care for every American, and to provide free college for every American. We can do all these things. We can make the changes. We can have the budgets that are moral documents that reflect our values. We can have a program for addressing the climate crisis, and that program is a Green New Deal. We can address our healthcare crisis with Medicare for all. We can address our unemployment crisis with a new vision for jobs and freedom in this country that extends from the promise that was made back in 1963 by the March on Washington. That March on Washington for jobs and freedom didn't merely outline a demand for addressing the fundamental crisis of racial discrimination and segregation in that moment. It also demanded addressing systemic racism in our economy, in our society. And that's where we have to get to. So we have a lot of work to do, there's no question. The next president will have an incredible plate on his table. But he will also have a vice president, hopefully, who will be able to work with him in addressing these fundamental issues, and a Senate and a Congress that can do the job. All of that is possible, but it's only possible if people rise up in this moment. I wish I was with you today, because I get so much energy from meeting with grassroots activists across this country, but especially in my home state of Wisconsin, who are doing the work to make sure that this election is a transformative moment in our history. And I want to ask you to take a moment with me and reflect back on another election 100 years ago as a reminder that we've been here before. 100 years ago, in the election of 1920, this country was coming off a horrible war. And that war had indeed created incredible budget crises and budget challenges. We were also coming off a pandemic, the great pandemic of 1918, which strayed into 1919, which killed hundreds of thousands of people and destabilized our communities and our economy. We were in a moment of great economic turbulence. We were also in a moment where racist organizations were seeking to stir deep divisions along lines of race and ethnicity in cities across this country. The Ku Klux Klan was on the rise, and there were political leaders who were urging that organization on, dividing us against one another, and seeking to achieve political power and economic power by stirring racial and ethnic hatred. That was where we were 100 years ago. And at that time, the Democratic Party was insufficient to the challenge. The sitting president of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, was ailing. He had suffered a major stroke and was actually incapacitated for much of that period. The party at the national level was unfocused and in great conflict with itself. In Wisconsin, the Democratic Party was almost non-existent. The Republican Party at that time was where the great battles were fought over whether you would have a progressive direction or whether you would have a conservative direction. In the 19-teens, the progressive movement of Robert M. La Follette had stumbled. And in fact, progressives had been beaten back in a number of elections. There was a sense that the Republican Party was indeed going to become a conservative party, and a fear of that. There was also an understanding that at that point, the Democratic Party in Wisconsin was not really sufficient to take charge and to begin to move the state in a progressive direction. And it was so important what happened in Wisconsin in 1920 because Wisconsin had really been America's laboratory of democracy at that point. Wisconsin had led on so many fundamental progressive issues. And as Wisconsin was stumbling, as the national politics was going in such a terrible direction, there was a great battle. And the 1920 election in Wisconsin was a race in which progressives took over what was then the Republican Party, the old Republican Party, took it over, and their platform called for, and I'm not offering any hyperbole there. Their platform, and I will note it, called for defending the rights of workers and farmers against corporate monopolies, for changing the capitalist system so that it erred on the side of the working class and not wealthy elites, for ending race hatred in this country and addressing discrimination in not just the South, but the North as well. And finally, for restructuring our budget priorities so that military profiteers would pay their fair share and a military industrial complex would be deconstructed. That was what progressives fought for in Wisconsin in 1920. And their candidate for governor was a guy named John Blaine. He was a lawyer from out in Boscobel, Wisconsin. My great-grandfather helped to manage his campaign in Western Wisconsin. They had been friends for many, many years. And they mounted that campaign as a battle, not just for an office, but really a battle for the soul of this state and this nation. They knew what they were up against, and they organized at the grassroots. They didn't get paid for what they did. They went out in small towns and in the cities across Wisconsin. They knocked on doors because then they could knock on doors, but they used the new device, the telephone, to make phone calls. And they also sent letters and handed out literature and did all the things that Grassroots North Shore does to this day. And in that 1920 election, thanks to the arrival of women at the polls, because that was the year in which women finally were given their fair position in our democracy and in our politics, John Blaine and the progressives won a landslide victory. It was so overwhelming that they not only were the largest political force in the state legislature, the second largest force in the state legislature was the Socialist Party out of Milwaukee. And their program in the 1920s was a radical program that was transformative in this state, that locked in the progressive initiatives of Robert M. La Follette and extended them beyond any place that people had imagined up to that point. Wisconsin again became the laboratory of democracy and began to lay the groundwork for Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal. That was how important the election of 1920 was. I wish I could tell you that we transformed everything and solved all the problems. There's an old story that Gaylord Nelson, our former US Senator and governor, told, that when he was a little boy, he went to hear La Follette speak. And as he was walking home, he was very silent. And his father asked him, why are you so upset? Why are you so silent? And Gaylord said to his father, it's just a very little boy, said, Well, I was hoping one day to be president of the United States, but I know that Robert M. La Follette and the progressives will solve all the problems. I wish Gaylord had been right. But the truth of the matter is that Robert M. La Follette and the progressives laid a groundwork for solving problems. Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal Democrats extended it, and they were helped along the way by Wisconsin progressives who moved into the Democratic Party and began to outline a vision that was far more progressive than much of the rest of the Democratic Party, far more progressive than much of the rest of the nation, but showed us the direction we needed to go in toward economic and social and racial justice, saving the planet and ending the endless wars. So 1920 was a big deal. Now we're in 2020, and this is just as big a deal. We're at a moment where so many of the changes that were won in the past are under threat. We're also at a moment where so many new changes must be initiated. This election matters more than any election in modern history in this country. I know you've heard that before. It's often said, but the simple truth of the matter is it does matter more. And it's not just simply because of who's in the White House or who's in a particular office. This matters more than individuals and parties. The fact is that we have a very short amount of time in which to save our planet. We have a very short amount of time in which to truly address the racial injustice in this country, the systemic racism that has for so long burdened us and torn us apart as a country. And we have a very short amount of time in which to initiate an economy that is fair for all workers and all people, that provides for healthcare as a human right, that provides for education as a human right, and that steers this country and this world in a better direction. Grassroots North Shore is at the heart of that struggle. And I want you to understand that what you do now will decide how people talk about 2020. Will they talk, as I spoke about 1920 in Wisconsin, as a transformative moment that really saw this state moving in the direction that would shape a vision, not just for Wisconsin, but for the country, that would lay the groundwork for a new deal? Will we look back on 2020 and the work that we did today as having been that transformative, not just in our state, but for our country? The fact is, there are powerful forces working against us. There are plenty of people that would like to see us fail. They know that if we do not stand up at this moment, if we do not do what we need to do as citizens, that their economic and political power will be locked in, not just in this moment, but in the long term. We can't afford to have this be an election in which we remain with a broken status quo or indeed go backward. So that's what's at stake. And let me offer you a couple of notions as we think about going forward. First of these is that grassroots work always matters. It's always the most important. And grassroots candidates always matter. They're always the most important. You will see a lot of television ads. You will see a lot of messaging coming out from Washington and New York and other places. But the reality is that what matters is what goes on in the communities on the North Shore of Milwaukee, and the communities that you head up toward Port Washington and up that eastern shore of Wisconsin into Jess King's district, and where you have the potential for a transformative congressional election there. These grassroots candidates who are working in tough races, in uphill races, in gerrymandered districts, are really the people that have the most potential to guide us to where we need to be. I know the presidential race is the critical race of this election. I understand that. But I want to emphasize to you that a president cannot govern without a Congress. And so the congressional races in which Grassroots North Shore is involved matter tremendously. And they are races that are possible. The same goes for the legislative races. Again, Wisconsin has for so long been a North Star state, a state that shows the rest of the country the way to go. We've been knocked down and beaten back. The governorship of Scott Walker was profoundly destructive to this state. It harmed our workers, it harmed our farmers, it harmed our communities, it divided us, and it left us with gerrymandered districts that made it hard for us to solve our own problems. In 2018, as Mandela Barnes noted, progressives led the Democratic Party in the right direction. Democrats won every statewide race in Wisconsin. It was a transformative election. It put Tony Evers in charge as governor of Wisconsin, Mandela Barnes as lieutenant governor, Josh Kaul as attorney general, Sarah Godlewski as state treasurer, Doug LaFollette as secretary of state, and it reelected Tammy Baldwin to serve in the United States Senate. That was a remarkable result. And yet it was not reflected in the vast majority of legislative race results because of gerrymandering. And it's easy to get discouraged in such a moment. But I want to emphasize to you that the work that you do in the next few weeks can indeed matter, and it can even overcome gerrymandering. I want to close off by telling you the story from another election, 1964. In 1964, the state of Wisconsin faced all of its elections up and down the ballot. It was a critical race, but it was also a critical race at the national level because you had President Lyndon Johnson, who had inherited the presidency after the assassination of John Kennedy, running against Barry Goldwater, an extreme right-wing Republican who threatened so many misdirections for this country, who had opposed civil rights legislation, who opposed Medicare and Medicaid, who really wanted this country to go backward rather than forward. That 1964 election was a brutal, vital struggle. People were scared, and they had a reason to be scared. Also, though, it was one of those elections in which a lot of people looked at the map and they said, well, we can only win in some places. There's only a few things that are possible. One of those places was up in northeast Wisconsin, in what's now the congressional district where Jess King is running. In that race, there was a very, very conservative Republican incumbent who had won overwhelmingly in election after election after election. He was the most conservative in the Wisconsin delegation. He had voted against civil rights legislation. Yet the Democrats did not have a prominent candidate to run against him. They had to really look around to find somebody to run. They found a factory worker from Fond du Lac named John Race. John Race had been involved in local Democratic politics. He was a union leader who was very, very active, but he wasn't a big political figure, and he was the first to acknowledge it. But John Race agreed to make the run. He only asked that he would be able to keep at work on his job because he was in fact a working man. He didn't have the money or the resources to go out and campaign all the time. And the Democrats up in that district said, yeah, we understand. You can, of course, keep working on your job. He was a machinist. And just put in some time on the weekend. We're really just raising the flag. We just want people to know that there's a name at every spot on the ballot. We know this is an overwhelmingly Republican district. We know that it's been gerrymandered. We know that our chances are virtually zero. So, just do the best you can, John Race. We'll put up some signs. We'll print some literature. We'll go out and as grassroots activists, because we can't hire a staff. We'll go do as much as we can. And by running this race in this particular place, we'll be able to strengthen the rest of the ticket going up. Well, on election night, everybody was glued to the television sets at the Union Hall, and everybody was looking at the results come in. And it turned out to be a huge victory for Lyndon Johnson. The United States had rallied on behalf of civil rights and economic justice and Medicare and Medicaid, and voted for a Democratic president who promised to be on the right side of history. William Proxmire, the senator from Wisconsin, was also reelected by an unexpectedly wide margin. And up and down the ticket, Democrats were doing quite well. They did not win every race, but they won a number of them. And they were doing very, very well in the legislative races, even winning some districts that weren't supposed to be winnable. And late in the evening, John Race and everybody they were kind of starting to pack up, and John had to, I think if I'm right about the story, he had to work the next day. But somebody said, hey, you got to look at the television. Look at that report that's coming in. And they looked up at that report, and it said that the 6th district had elected a new member of Congress. John Race, the guy who couldn't take off much time from his factory job, couldn't be on the campaign trail all the time, had been swept in with a Democratic landslide that elected people all over the country, all over Wisconsin, in districts that were supposedly unwinnable. And at a critical juncture in this country's history, Lyndon Johnson didn't just win the White House. Democrats down the ticket won those races that gave Johnson the power as a president of the United States to extend civil rights laws, to do Medicare and Medicaid in a real way that began to build it out, to launch a war on poverty, to begin to do all of the things that had to happen in this country. That next congressional session after the 1964 election was a transformative moment in this country, perhaps one of the most significant, arguably the most significant since the New Deal. Now, the fact is, John Race only served one term. That district went back to being a pretty conservative district. But John Race got to go to Washington, D.C. to vote for civil rights and Medicare and Medicaid and a war on poverty and a transformative politics for this country. And Lyndon Johnson, for all of his failures, and they were many, I'm sad to say, did indeed set the tone for going forward, really a touchstone from the New Deal to Barack Obama's presidency, which I would argue renewed that with the Affordable Care Act and with so many of the initiatives that he sought to bring to fruition. But Barack Obama was not able to do everything he needed to do because he faced overwhelming obstruction. This country has not had a Democratic president with a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House of Representatives that was positioned to do the transformative change for too long. Too many problems have grown too great. This election will decide whether we have a president and a Congress that is prepared to do what is absolutely necessary for economic and social and racial justice. That's how important your work is. And it is important work in every precinct, at every door, with every message that you send. Because the fact of the matter is, no matter how much money is spent in this election will be won at the grassroots, and it will be won by groups like Grassroots North Shore. I see a fundamental change coming in America. I see us finally beginning to address the issues that we have left unaddressed for too long. There is going to be a great wave election this year, and that wave has to start somewhere. I'd like to think that it will start on the shores of Lake Michigan, in places around Milwaukee, just north of Milwaukee, heading up across that county line, and then heading out across the state of Wisconsin, heading out from Wisconsin across the upper Midwest, winning back states that went the wrong way in 2016, and winning back a country that went the wrong way in 2016. It has to start somewhere, brothers and sisters, and I believe it's going to start on the North Shore with Grassroots North Shore and activists who win a transformative victory. I'm so proud to be with you tonight. I wish I could be with you in person. I know we will be together soon, and we will be together to celebrate. And so as I thank you again for having me, I want to turn this over to some other great folks who will close it out. You've already heard that Mark Guinness will be talking to you, and also the fantastic group Libra will be playing a little bit of music. But before I go, let me thank you. Because the fact of the matter is, when I'm with you, in person or virtually, I know I am at the touchstone place for a better politics. Thank you, Grassroots North Shore. And now, over to Mark Guinness.
Hi there. My name is Mark Guinness, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Grassroots North Shore. Let me show you what happens when beautiful flowers don't receive their life-sustaining water. Not a pretty picture.
Honey, did you remember to water the flowers?
Of course not. Well, this is the kind of thing that can happen when an all-volunteer organization like Grassroots North Shore doesn't receive its life-sustaining funding. Uh-oh, here comes the money pitch. No, this is not a pitch. It's more like a guideline to help you feel better about yourself, to sleep well at night, just knowing you're helping this incredible organization. Hey, get your finger off that leave meeting button. Remember, Grassroots North Shore has been there for all of us for over a decade through sponsorship of events like the Governor's Forum, candidate debates, topic discussions, the weekly newsletter, and most importantly, helping our volunteers campaign for progressive candidates and causes. Now it's your turn. Please, don't make me beg. Okay, I will. Be generous with your donation so that Grassroots North Shore can continue to fulfill its mission to educate, inform, and advocate for progressive change and solutions. And to all of you out there, and to all of our wonderful volunteers, a great big thank you. Now let's go get them.
I wrote this song about Wisconsin. Here goes. We're having a family picnic at the wayside. Tell all our friends and kinfolk to come. Family picnic at the wayside. Up north on US 51. Well, it's Sunday, the weekend folk are leaving. And south to their high-paying jobs. Yes, it's Sunday, time to have a picnic. Bring rocks and corn on the cob. Summer jobs are fine, wish we had all the time. Let's picnic in the sun on US 51. Oh, how they hate to leave God's country. Wisconsin is where they love to be. And they get in line to travel southbound. We'll be back next year, yes, you see. So let's head north to Wisconsin. In the woods, it's peaceful as can be. Dark skies, northern lights, and bright stars there. Going fishing in its clear lakes and streams. Summer jobs are fine, wish we had all the time. Let's picnic in the sun on US 51. Having a family picnic at the wayside. Tell all our friends and kinfolk to come. Having a family picnic at the wayside. Up north on US 51. In God's country on US 51. There you go.
This song is called Poverty Gulch, and I wrote it after a trip to Colorado and to the Leadville mine. 1, 2, 3, 4.